Today I am going to discuss some basic concepts of manual testing, like what is scenario, what is test condition, what is test case, then what is a test bed, and I'm going to give some example of all of these. Okay, and I will also mention some attributes of test case. So first we'll start with a test bed. What is test bed? Test bed refers to the test execution environment configured to carry on testing activities. Like it consists of specific hardware, software, operating systems, network configuration, the product under test, other system software, and application software. Okay. So, so basically, we have to get ready the test bed before starting the test execution. Okay. Now, scenario. What is scenario? Test scenario refers to any functionality that can be tested. Okay. For example, I have mentioned here a few examples just to explain that what exactly we understand about scenario. In any e-commerce project, checking the payment gateway is a test scenario. Okay. So on the basis of that scenario, we can derive different test cases. Number two, in any website, checking the login functionality is a scenario as well. Then, in any website, checking the functionality of contact us or inquiry form is an example of scenario. In case of a social network website, checking the functionality of a module like update your profile is an example of scenario. Like suppose in LinkedIn also we got profile. In Facebook we got profile. Okay. There there is an option like we can update our profile, we can upload our images. Okay, we can upload our we can change our details and all those stuff. So this is a functionality, this is a scenario. On the basis of that scenario, we can derive different types of test cases actually to test that functionality. I will explain that with more example. What's the relation between scenario and test cases in some coming slides. Then test condition. What is test condition? Test condition is a constraint that should be followed for testing and application. Okay, so this test scenario, test condition, basically we derive this after analyzing the requirements. Okay, like business requirements, technical specifications. After analyzing all those documents, we actually derive the scenario and test conditions. Now the example of test conditions, suppose in contact form, there is an input field mobile number, okay, that should receive only 10-digit numbers, not any other numbers. So just focus on that line, that should receive only 10-digit numbers. So what are the constraints here? First of all, the input which we will put there in the mobile input field, it should be number, not any other letters, alphanumeric letters, or any special characters. Okay, it has to be the number. This is a constraint. And secondly, the numbers have to be 10-digit numbers, not any other numbers. So that's another second constraint. So there we can see, to test this mobile input field, when we will create the test case, we have to keep in mind these two constraints. Okay, so that's how we derive the test condition from the requirement specification. Okay, then user should be able to log in Okay, user should be able to log in only with valid username and password. So checking the function login functionality is the scenario. Now in that scenario, we can see this constraint that username and login should be valid, then only it should be accepted. Okay, so this is also an example of test condition. So when we write the test cases from the scenario, we have to consider the test conditions. All right. Then test case. Test case is a set of instructions derived from test scenario consisting of inputs, execution conditions, testing procedure, and expected results to be executed in order to achieve a particular testing objective. Example Gracia, to exercise a particular program path or to verify the compliance with a specific requirement. Now, I'm going to explain with example what is test case in the next slide. Before that, I will just mention some of the attributes of test case. Okay, these are some of the attributes like typical attributes, I'll say, but there is no hard and fast rule that uh, always like that when we will write the test case, they will contain this. There can be it depends on the company, the manager, test manager. So like this, but these are some typical attributes of test cases like test ID, priority, version, requirement ID, module, submodule, type, test description, expected results, result means actual result, then created on which date and created by whom, last modified date, comment, add attachment. There can be screenshot or something when we are executing the test case. If the test case failed or something, we can attach the attachments. Okay. Now, test script. A test script is a set of instructions to be performed on the software or application under test to check that it performs or works the way it's intended. So, for example, here I give one example where uh, I have cleared the relationship between scenario, test case, and test script. So, suppose we are testing a scenario, testing login function. Okay. So now for this scenario, we can derive different test cases. So I'm giving a simple one example of one test case. User enters valid username and valid password. Okay. So this is a test case for this scenario. There can be another test case like user enters invalid username and invalid password. Another it can be user enters valid username and invalid password. Again, it can be user enters invalid username and valid password. So like this, you can derive different test cases on the same scenario. Okay. And while we will do this, we have to keep in mind the test conditions as well. Now, in this test case, the test case is user enters valid username and valid password. So how we will execute this test case? This is the procedure. Okay. What's the procedure here? So you can say procedure or test script. Okay. We have to follow this script when we will execute the test case. Now we can execute this test case manually or we can use some automation tool also depending on our situation, company policy, manager's instruction. Okay. But the steps will be the same. Either you can follow it manually yourself or you can use automation tool. Okay. Now the first, when you are following the test execution in the script, The first step is given user is on login page. This is the precondition. Okay. So because we are testing the login functionality of an website, so we have to be in the login page. So given the precondition, user is on login page. Number two, user enters valid username parameter. So this is parameter. This is actually our input, test input data, we can say. Okay. So this is our test input data, valid username parameter, which we have to prepare before. What we have to do? Because if we want to use this as a valid username, we have to set our system like this, like it has to be registered in the database from where it will be checked when we will enter the data in the input. Then user enters valid password. So this is another test input data. It has to be set before executing the test. Set means it has to be registered in the database as a valid password. Then only we will get correct result. Then 4, user clicked login button. So after entering valid username and valid password, user clicked login button. Okay. Then expected results. So expected results here, user landed on net banking page. Okay. So when we write the test script, we also have to mention the expected results. Okay. So then what happens when the tester execute the test case? So they compare the actual result with the expected results. If both are same, that means the test passes. But if there is any discrepancy between expected result and the actual result, that means the test fails. Okay, so that's how I just explained here what's the relation between scenario, test condition, test case, and how to execute the test case we write the test script or test procedure as well. Okay, thank you for watching.